right, you are listening to Addicts in Recovery. This is your 3 favorite hosts on Recovery Talk. I am Zach, and I am an addict.
And I am Mike, and I'm an alcoholic.
And I am Kevin, I'm an alcoholic.
We are here to basically talk recovery.
Yeah, that's our mission. Our goal is to spread that positivity that you're not alone, that you can do this. There's hope out there for the addict and normies out there, that there is a better side of this.
Reach out. We have plenty of platforms that you can reach us on. Mike knows what's up.
Find us on Instagram, Addicts in Recovery, AIR. We're going to be keeping you updated on all of our current episodes and positivity and thoughts and ideas and updates on what we're doing.
We also want to know, what is your feedback? I mean, how do we sound? What do you want to hear or talk about? Do you have any questions or like any specific topics that you want us to talk about?
Give us some subjects that you want to hear us talk about.
Exactly. And then you can find us on SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, literally any
iTunes,
anything. If it has a podcast, we're on it now.
You'll find us.
This week, we're talking about everybody's favorite 4-letter F word.
Watch your language, Kevin.
Fear.
There's kids listening.
Oh, fear. Okay, that makes sense.
We're okay then.
We're going to be talking about fear today, kind of what our fears are, how we process through them, and what Kevin fears most, which is himself.
Stay tuned and find out.
Dun, dun, dun. What about fear? What's up with fear? What are you fearing about? What are you fearing right now, Kevin?
You know, I don't think I'm really dealing with much fear at the moment. You know, I can get myself pretty worked up about things, especially if I haven't been meditating or doing a basic program. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can start head running, which is a kind of fear. Just worried about what's going to happen in the future when really I have nothing to worry about. Like, a lot of things are actually doing really well. So I'll get anxiety, and then I think that I'll make up a story to explain the anxiety, you know? And then I'll head run about stuff like that. But at the moment, I'm not feeling much about fear.
What about that anxiety? Like, how do you recognize and deal with your anxiety?
You know, I'm so familiar with anxiety. I used to go on. I used to be completely addicted to Xanax. There's probably a lot of people out there that were. I had a doctor. I was in an accident about, I don't know, maybe 13 years ago or so. And I had a doctor that used to just give me Xanax like they were M&Ms. And I didn't even know that they were addictive at the time. But I kind of got to the point where I couldn't leave the house without the entire bottle in my pocket. And
sounds like a typical Tuesday.
Yeah, you know, it was debilitating. My anxiety attacks from my drinking were so immense, and I didn't know that the drinking was just perpetuating the anxiety. I would have anxiety, so I would drink to cure it, and then when I woke up in the morning, I'd have more anxiety, so I'd drink to cure that, and it just went in this vicious cycle for ever.
Yeah, you got to wash them down with something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Right. And so I remember when I quit drinking, the anxiety attacks actually went away. And they didn't immediately go away, but they got much and much, much less. I went through a relapse. Well, I have, you know, more than once, you know, but I remember the anxiety coming back, and I remember literally saying to myself, "Oh, hi, old friend. I know exactly what this is," you know.
Where have you been hiding?
Right. But I didn't want to go back on the Xanax because it took me about 3 months to wean myself off of those. I was on them for about almost 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a long period of time.
Yeah. So
Weaning off in 3 months, though, that's a wise decision to do, because
Yeah.
you can't just
Oh,
cold
no.
turkey that shit.
Oh no. So I literally started breaking them in half, and then actually allowing myself to feel the anxiety, knowing what it was, and kind of just saying, I know that I'm going to make it through this. I'm not going to dose myself just so I can't feel it. Sometimes I think you need to feel things, Well, I should say that's for myself, whoever you are, don't go off medication just because I said something, please. But I mean, for me, I needed to allow myself to feel those kind of things. So I think just being aware of that anxiety and trying not to make up a reason for it. Because sometimes I just feel free-floating anxiety, and I can't really nail it down to what's wrong, because there's really nothing going on, I don't know. What about you, Mike?
I have like kind of a similar story. I had a lot of anxiety that was kind of started from too much over drinking, and I went to thought it was the right thing to do was to talk to a doctor about it, and like immediately he prescribed me Klonopin.
Right.
And like the first few times taking it, it like brought a level of like, oh, okay, I can do this. The fear is gone, anxiety is gone. And within, I would say, 5 days, I felt like I was becoming dependent on it.
Right.
Like I needed it, and I took a little bit more. And then if I didn't have it, or I didn't have it with me, kind of the same thing, I just became stressed out. And it just took over. And I remember doing that for a while. I just remember going through that first prescription round. I think he gave me 30, and I went through those within like 13 days maybe.
Right.
Just like double taking them because I couldn't fill it. And he says, well, you might need to take 3 in one day. And I ended up taking like 7 in one day.
Right.
It's like, okay, this isn't going to last very long. And I remember when I ran out, that's when the real fear kicked in. I thought, like, am I going to die? Heart rate increased, couldn't sleep, the sweats, just laying there rolling around.
Did you go through anxiety attacks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I've always had anxiety attacks just from different levels in my life growing up, of like school, I've always been really cautious about my speech. I don't stutter, but a lot of times my words don't ever come out the way that I want it to. So I was really stressed out about that when I was younger. I remember sitting in class, and the teacher would be like, okay, you're going to be reading in each paragraph. And then I would count the kids in front of me. So I knew exactly what paragraph was mine, and I would read it over and over and over so I wouldn't have a mistake. And
Wow, because you're so articulate when you speak. I have
No,
idea
I'm
where
not.
that comes from.
no, it's ironic that I lived in the Caribbean for a while, because everything sounds like you just put a sentence in a blender and you pour it out. So I fit in. The first time I fit in for a while, but it just, claustrophobia. I had fear of stuff like that. Being locked in like in elevator type places, elevators, airplanes. So alcohol helped with that for a while. Mm-hmm. And then obviously it didn't.
You know what I've kind of had fear over is trying to figure out what somebody else is thinking. What do they think of me? I don't want to ask, say someone's doing something, and I don't want to say, hey, I want to come too, on that thing that you're doing, because I fear of the rejection of it, I don't know what they're going to think. I don't know. And I remember I was talking to this friend about it, and he said, Kevin, it's utterly impossible for you to know what somebody else is thinking. You have no idea, you know? And so I kind of come up to this conclusion that if I think I know what somebody else is thinking, I'm probably wrong. And I find that I usually am,
Right.
you know? So, and oftentimes they're afraid of the same thing. You know, I remember being, I used to go to a lot of AA meetings. I still do, maybe not quite as many as I used to. But I remember not talking to people because I was afraid, you know. I was afraid of what they would think. I didn't want to share my story because I didn't think it was, you know, nobody would find it relative to anything, you know, even though we're all there for the exact same reason, just under different circumstances. But I remember this one guy in particular, and I always just really liked what he had to say, the way he handled himself, and he had some recovery on him. And I never talked to him because I was just always afraid of, I don't know, like having him like look at me and go, God, why is that guy talking to me? You know what I mean? And but one day I walked in and I said hi, and I sat down. And after the meeting, I got up and to go to my car because I used to go to meetings, not say anything, and then get the hell out of there as fast as possible. Yeah. And he comes walking up to me and he's like, "Hey, thanks for saying hi. I thought you didn't like me." And he was very sincere about, you know, thanks for saying hi to me, you know, because he thought that I looked down on him or something, and so that's why he thought I never talked to him, and it completely caught me off guard because I thought it was the total opposite. So that's like a you know, kind of a version of fear that I kind of feel. I still have the same kind of issue today, but nowhere near as much as I did. So today I literally stick my hand out and say, "Hi, I'm Kevin," and introduce myself to people. And, you know, usually it's well received. Well, I've never had it ill received.
Yeah, I can imagine. When you said that, I was like, what?
Yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ill-received. Yeah.
I'm sure there'll
Until
be
you
a day.
run into the hallway across Sac and he hits you with his shoulder.
Yeah. And he starts to like head spin over there or something.
Exactly.
Give me your lunch money.
I want your lunch box. I don't just want your lunch money.
What do you got, Zach?
Man, I am for as long as I can remember, I've just been an innately scared individual. As long as I can remember, I would, as a kid, I would do that same thing with the reading. Mm-hmm. I would do that all the time. I would get like stage fright because you know how they would pull you out of class and you had to read and just you in front of the teacher. Oh man, that messed my head up. I was innately scared. I was scared of what was going to happen. I was scared of people. I was scared of anything you can think of. Like I was generally scared of it. And I don't know where necessarily that fear came from. I mean, I could put my finger on a couple of things. But I also lived in a very, it was pretty hostile. I want to say it was a fairly hostile environment. My dad was a pretty heavy drinker, and that dude he was like Jekyll and Hyde. You never knew what would come and what wouldn't, right? And so he would come home one day and everything's fine, and we're laughing, we're having a great time. And then the next day he'll come home and it's like World War III. You know, there's dirty dishes in the sink, and then all of a sudden something goes flying or somebody, you know, gets yelled at. And so I kind of lived the majority of my home life on edge. And then it just transpersed into everything else, like every other aspect of my life. The main reason why I actually loved using so much is because it took that fear away. I remember the first time I actually IV used drugs. I still remember it. I attribute it to feeling like Superman.
because all of those fears were gone. Like I could do anything, right? I could conquer the world. My conscience, not necessarily my conscience, but I used to say my dad lived in my head. When actually that's just my own negative self-talk that I attribute it. It's literally like in his voice too. But all of that just shut up, right? It just went away. And so I had to spend, when I got into, when I decided to stop using and go into treatment, I was terrified of going into treatment, right? And my main excuse was, I don't want to go and live with a bunch of junkies. You guys are crazy, right? IV drug user over
Right,
here, you know,
right.
stealing and lying and manipulating everyone in my path.
I think that's called snubbing your nose at people while you're in the gutter.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what it was an excuse, right?
Right.
I was scared. I was scared to change. And so, but I was also scared to keep living the way that I was, right? So I was scared to keep living the way I was. I was scared to change. I was scared to do anything. I get to treatment. I'm scared that I'm there. I'm scared that I'm missing things. I'm scared about the future. I'm scared about the people that are around me, about what people are thinking. Dude, I thought about what people are thinking used to just haunt me. Actually, getting into, once I got into like, regularly using drugs, that actually kind of went away, which I guess is good in a sense. I don't know. But I was just regularly scared. And then I was scared of relapsing because I left, right? Or first of all, I was scared, do I want this? Do I not want this? So then I'm in this like fearful state of half of me says, yes, I want to be clean. The other half of me says, no, you don't need to be clean. And then I get out of treatment and I'm committed, and then I'm like terrified of relapsing, right? And so I'm scared to death of relapsing. I'm scared to death of seeing people. I'm scared to death of leaving the house. The only place I'll go is to meetings because it's the only place I know that is safe. I mean, like, fear just ruled like everything in my life. Everything. Every breath that I took and every action that I made was based in fear. And I could just keep going and going and going. It's actually quite incredible that I'm doing with my life what I am doing because I'm such an innately fearful person. It's just nuts. This is just absolutely nuts.
Well, you should be proud of yourself, honestly, for like the way that I've known you for a year. I never would have seen that. You're very confident, which is a good thing.
Now.
So you hide, yeah, now. But
These days.
But I feel like fear, in a way, can be, at times it's been a helpful guide to me. And it's obviously at times been a very, like, hurtful thing. You know, something that's stopped me from...
Easy there,
I
Turbo.
just slapped the
Homie just
mic.
smacked the mic.
I'm fear of this mic.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. But there's been times when I've been like really fearful of something and you overcome it. Mm-hmm. And like the whole alcoholism thing, like I remember waking up so many mornings and fearing for my life, you know, thinking like this is forever and I've created myself to become this way. There's no way out. And like, that's really haunting. Nothing behind you can lift you up. You're just like stuck in the hole. This is me. And I hated that part of it. And the only way to fix it was to drink or be sick. Mm-hmm. And there was a fine line. It was like, okay, I tried to do this. And this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. We were on a family vacation in Lake Powell, in the middle of the lake, and I hid alcohol all over the houseboat. Like I pre-set it up so I could have it as I needed, And obviously you're out there with no cell reception. You have nobody to call if you need a rescue. Like, you're out there. You're pretty far out there. So I hide all the alcohol, and we're there for 7 days, and day 3 rolls along, and my rationings are getting pretty small. And I start to get that fear, like I'm going to die. And I fully ran out of alcohol, and that was the first time I actually felt withdrawal syndromes. And my head hurt, so much like pressure, and I tried to fall asleep on top of the houseboat, looking up at the stars and the moon, thinking like, just roll around, you'll be all right, just go to bed. And I would stand up, and I felt like I was drunk, but I wasn't drinking at all. I just like was stumbling and hitting the walls, and I would go down and splash water on my face, thinking like, just having these small pep talks to myself, like, snap out of it.
Yeah, you got this.
You got
It's
this.
all
You
in
can
your
do
head,
it,
bro.
And it's like 2 a.m. and everyone's sleeping. And the only thought that came in my head that was comforting is that my sister and my brother-in-law are on the houseboat, and they're both nurses. That's it. That's the only thing that saved me. And I just, the monster migraines, wake up in the morning, and I was throwing up, and just throwing up nothing. And thought I was going to die, and I was like ready to go like explode and tell everyone in the house, but like, I need to go to a hospital, or like call in the Lifeline and come airdrop me some alcohol, or pick me up and take me to the bar,
You're just telling me this story is like sending chills like through me.
Yeah.
I've done it so many times.
It was so shitty. And like, I remember just feeling like this is going to be forever. And there's no way out. Like, this is my new life. I've signed up. I've committed for this. I've drank myself to this misery. And it was really sad. Like, I remember like kind of getting upset and, crying on top of the houseboat while everyone was asleep. And I thought, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And fortunately, 2 days later, you think that would be enough to like shake you, but 2 days later, I'm at the marina picking somebody up, and the first thing I do is go grab more alcohol at the store and hide it again in the areas on the boat that I had it, and never got caught by anybody.
Of course, because you went like at least an entire day without it, so you deserved
2 days.
Yeah, 2 days. Yeah, so you deserved.
Right,
to
I earned it.
again.
I'm not an alcoholic. I did 2 days of sobriety. And
Right. I remember going for an afternoon. And
Yeah.
thinking, I should get a reward for that.
Yeah, and I was at the marina at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I'm buying a 12-pack, and by 9 I was 6 deep, and I felt better.
Right.
I was like, okay, I can do this, and going back now, you looking at these old photos of me on that trip, you can just see it in my face, like it just looks like shit. Like,
Were you all swollen? And
oh
red?
yeah, I'll show you pictures in a minute. They're terrible.
That also that reminds me. So like I said, I would self-medicate, right, to get rid of the fear. And as I would self-medicate to get rid of the fear, new fears developed. Like, anytime I drove by a cop, right, my heart would drop to my stomach. I wouldn't even be doing anything wrong. I mean,
Right.
just immediately my heart would drop to my stomach. Or when am I gonna have enough shit to go on to go on this trip? Am I gonna? I can tell you how many times I have brought excess amounts of drugs on a trip, and then by day 3 of day 7 or 7-day trip, I'm out.
Yeah.
And then you're that
panic.
Yeah. Oh my God. And then the whatever it takes to get more, right? And so then there's that fear, and then there's the fear of, oh, do the people around me know? And then there's the fear of, oh, am I going to do something dumb because I've done something dumb like this before? Am I going to do something dumb again? And so there's all these other fears that come in, added on to the self-medication aspect of things. Just tax right on again. Am I going to lose my job? How many times I've asked myself that? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to fail this drug test? How many times I've asked myself, and I've been worried about that. I have ingested probably like toxic amounts of bleach just to pass a drug test. Because I was so terrified that I was going to pass a drug test. Somebody's like, yeah, drink bleach.
Don't try this at home.
This is Zach's homemade remedy. Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do it by any means. I mean, any sensible person would not drink bleach. But because I was so terrified of not passing this drug test, I would go to any lengths, right? Any lengths to get it. And so I thought that was really funny because it comes, even our self-proposed solutions create fears on top of those fears that we already had.
Right.
Well, and the cop thing is a no joke. I'd be driving around with my wife, and she'd be like, I'd be like, "There's a cop." She's just like, and what's up? You know, she would say that to me all the time. Like there was some enemy, and they did something to me. I'm just like, oh great, another cop.
Goddamn 5-0.
Yeah,
You know, that is one thing about being clean is I see a cop and I don't care.
Right?
I'm the same way. I like
It's just
speed.
like another car.
I kind of like test them.
Right.
Like
Come
speed
get
limit
me.
70 miles an hour. They're riding in the lane. I'm in the fast lane going like 75, 77. Start cruising by. I'm like, what are you gonna do, bitch?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because usually besides, like the odds that I'd get a DUI, the first thing to go when I couldn't afford more alcohol or drugs was my car insurance. So usually I'd be driving with none,
Yeah.
and then I'd be like wasted. I remember so many times pulling into a 7-Eleven and there'd be cops at the 7-Eleven and just immediately like, what am I going to do? If I throw my car into
I gotta go to
reverse,
New
they're gonna
gas station.
know.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Like maybe I should just sit here and act like I'm on my phone and, wait until they leave. But then they'd be in there for like 15 minutes, because they're eating a donut or something. Like, it's just, I'm so glad that that doesn't
They're
happen
gone.
anymore.
Well, it's all of the build up with it. And I think fear, it does. I remember doing that. I was at a gas station and I didn't have a license plate on the front of my car. And I pulled in and I got out and I bought some stuff from the cashier and I came out and she was like staring at me through the window, just like watching me. And I was just like, what is she going to do? Call the police on me? Did I smell like alcohol? And I just like backed up and I was like, I don't have a license plate on the front. So I just kept going further and further backward, like all the way out the whole parking lot so she wouldn't see me. And
Yeah.
she was probably just wondering what the fuck
Okay, doing? Yeah.
Could you imagine somebody going backwards all the way
Oh,
out?
yeah.
Like
Oh, yeah.
ridiculous.
What about like when birthdays come up? Like I remember, like getting 3 and 6 and those kind of things. Like I remember just a couple of days before it was actually going to happen. Like wonder if I'm actually going to make it. Like what if I go out like tomorrow and then I don't get it? And it's only like 2 days away. You know what I mean? And I didn't even like feel like drinking at all. I just have like anxiety. What if I don't make it? What if there used to be this story that this guy used to tell, and he would talk about slips, and how he didn't really kind of believe in like accidental slips, and that's just one guy's story. It's like just how he looks at it.
I believe it.
But he's like, I've never seen a guy walking down the sidewalk and he slips on a banana peel and there happens to be an open bottle of tequila on the sidewalk 6 feet in front of him, and he slips on the banana peel and screams on his way down, and the tequila bottle like goes down his throat as he lands on the pavement. He's like, I just don't believe that happens, And he thinks slips were, at least psychologically meditated before they actually happen.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I've come to believe that too. They say a slip usually happens like 3 months in advance, really, before you ever even pick up.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, but that kind of thing does happen. What about that, Mike? You might know something about that, Mr. 1 year
Yeah.
today.
Dun-dun-dun-dun.
What?
Yeah. So yeah, about that. So I went on a weekend trip with a bunch of my buddies, and my dad comes in my office on Thursday morning, and he's like, "You're leaving today, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's all, "Don't do anything stupid." And I was like, you know what? Thank you. It's a start. Otherwise, in the past, he wouldn't have given two shits in the first place. He'd been like, yeah, have fun. But now it was kind of interesting. I told him thank you. I was like, thanks, Dad. That means a lot, even though it was kind of half-assed. But yeah, but I was like, I'm not going to blow it, Dad. I've got a earmark that I'm hitting in a couple days, so I'm not that interested in relapsing. And I just felt, you know, during the time that I was with my friends, there definitely was moments where I was like, am I missing out? And in the morning times, I was telling Zach this earlier today that they were all very envious of my situation of feeling not, you know, hungover and drinking a cup of coffee and enjoying my morning. And so it obviously the payback is that you have your health back, you feel good. But I got a question for you too. How, now being in recovery, has the fear level with your family or close ones, friends, been with you guys? If that makes sense, if that's a good question.
When I was when I was using, my fear level around anyone that could potentially know me was constantly elevated. And I was, like I said, I'm already a naturally fearful person. This is the way that I am. But to put me in front of these people and the drugs that I was doing and the behaviors that I was engaging in, I was constantly on edge, because I never knew what they knew, right? Mm-hmm. And I was always worried, and I was always trying to pick up on what they would know. So every once in a while, I'd kind of like feed in to try and get information out of them to see what they know and what they don't know. And 9 out of 10 times, I'd incriminate myself. They'd be like, "Why are you even talking about this? What do you mean? You started this conversation on drug use, Mom, not me," which is total bullshit. But it is night and day difference to be able to walk up to someone that I care about or who cares about me, look them dead in the eye, and not have this thought of, or this memory flash through my mind of me the night before stealing from their fucking wallet in their car, right? Or stealing their car, or manipulating them in some form or another to have my way, or stabbing them in the back, or doing, anything like that. Any of that shady behavior, I don't, that doesn't flash through my mind anymore. When I was using, that was always there. There was always something that I had done to that person that was in the back of my mind going, I hope they didn't find out. What if they did find out? Do they know? I don't know if they know. And so my conscience would eat me alive anytime I looked at somebody. And now I can look somebody in the eye, and this is just like crickets in the back of my mind. This is just blank. This is, oh, yeah. You know,
it's like another day.
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, here's, my mom. And the best part about it is I don't have to wake up in the morning and think about that shit. I don't have to wake up in the morning and go, all right, what lie do I have to cover up? Or what did I do, and how am I going to explain this? I don't have to do that anymore. And that alone dramatically decreased the level of fear that I have around my family members. Dramatically.
I used to do that with my wife. In the morning, I would wake up and wait for her to wake up and think like, I don't really remember what happened last night. Let's see if she has something to tell me, and just wait. And there was times where it was like she'd wake up and be like, oh, hey, good morning. And I was like, oh, man, I dodged a bullet. And then like the other times would be, I can't believe you. You're such an asshole. You did this. I'm like, ugh. It is nice. It's nice not having to wake up to this fear of all that bullshit. It's a waste of space.
Oh, man.
So how do you deal with those fears, Zach?
What ones?
Like, just like fear in general. Do you have like an exercise? Some people have mantras
Zach, like which
when
one?
they're in fear.
All right. So for a really long time, I did not approach fear healthily, like whatsoever. Obviously, I was using and abusing drugs. I was just doing just a lot of a lot of uh, a lot of toxic stuff to cope with it. And so now a lot of it is I have to face it. So a lot of people say everything you want is on the other side of fear, right? Those people that say that are usually not the ones that are facing their fears, okay? That's a lot easier fucking said than done. It's like, oh yeah, everything you want is at the other side of fear. So just jump out of this airplane right now. It's okay.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. It doesn't that minimizes the hell out of it. So what I really have to do, it depends on the fear that I am experiencing. But one of them is I ask myself, is this grounded in evidence? Is this fear that I am experiencing grounded in evidence? So one of the things that I guess recently, some of my recent fears that pop up are like, am I going to pass this class? Okay. So
Just
it's
not like normal.
just yeah,
like
which is a
natural-
normal.
right.
It's a normal fear. And so I'll ask myself this: Am I gonna be able to pass this class? And then I'll start kind of thinking on it, and then I'll start kind of spinning it out in my head. And as it's happening, it turns from am I going to pass this class to am I going to fail university life and be a failure for the rest of my life? And I have to stop and ask myself, well, is this rooted in any evidence, right? So have I ever failed a class? No. Have I ever failed a test? No. Have I ever failed an assignment? No. What about now is going to make it any different, right? And so I have to bring myself back to this level of, I guess, centeredness, because I can live. And there was a guy that once said this, and I love this. I love this quote so much. The future is make-believe. The future is literally a human construct that we made up to help predict to help predict what's going to happen after our next move, right? We literally make it up. And so I have to remember that. I have to remember that every single day. I don't know what the future is going to hold. I don't know what's going to happen. But what I do know is that 98% of the time when I'm sitting here predicting what's going to happen, it doesn't actually happen that way. And so I have to consistently talk myself through it. Calm down. Come back to reality. This is what's happening right now. You're making shit up. It's not founded in anything. There's no reason to act on it. That's another thing that I have a really hard time with, is acting on it. Like sometimes I will act out of fear. I mean, on a snap, and I don't even realize that I'm doing it until after it's done, and then I look at it and I go, God damn it, why did I even do that? And so I'll pull myself in, I'll sit down, I'll run like the serenity prayer or something through my head. Sometimes I'll do it like a dozen times just to stay grounded. And then I move on from there. But a lot of it is just like recognizing that it's not real.
Yeah.
Fear is not fucking real.
Well, like kind of in addition to that, I've struggled with like self expectations, and if I don't do what I think I would or should be doing, and it turns out a different way, then I'm okay with that, and not having like the fear of like, no, I was supposed to go this direction, but it shifted a little bit and I went here, and being okay with over there. And that's hard. Like I remember that in college, of really pushing towards, I wanted to be a plastic surgeon for a long time, actually.
You look like a plastic surgeon.
But it changed, and I remember like thinking, I had all this fear of like, man, I waste all this time and money of these classes that now don't help me with my construction management degree. And it was like I had this fear of I did waste a whole bunch of time. But then I'm like, think about all the stuff that you learn from it and being okay with that. So it's like kind of playing a mental gymnastics, I guess, with yourself, of being okay with the direction that you chose.
It is. You almost have to teach yourself how to approach things differently.
Right.
How to look at things from a different perspective. One of the things that I would really get upset about and I would really get peeved about was the fact that I had to take math classes for my business degree, which makes sense. If you're in business, you should probably know how to count to 10. I'm
Or maybe 12.
But I also don't need to know what calculus is either, unless I'm really getting into like some deep shit, right? But I would get so mad that I was wasting my time, and then I would fear that like this is opportunity lost, this is time lost, right? And in reality, I'll come back, and there's like weird calculus shit that happens in life that you'll catch and you'll be like, oh my God, I know why that did that. Something went up and it came down, and I know why it fucking came down. Hey, and then it's true because and then afterwards,
Kevin's all
I'm
nodding.
just like super happy that now
Gravity.
I don't have to take a calculus course because I know that part.
Yeah. For the square root of things, acute angles.
square root of whatever the thing is.
Okay, well I know up and down. so
Pi.
I'm good with that.
And it's not the good pie either. But I had to kind of rethink those moments of maybe I wasn't doing what I wanted to do or what I expected I should be doing, but I was doing what needed to be done at that time, and I learned from that, whatever it may be, even if it's not. I mean, how many people want to say that they spent a large majority of their lives being a drug addict, right? Not many people. Not many people would be like, yes, I just loved the fact that I ruined my life. And
other people will
I
say-
ended up with, some crazy viral infection and I murdered people and I did this and that and whatever. Yes, I would just love that as part of my life. No, they don't. But it's just like in the Knights That Promises where it says, we will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. After working like steps and going through this program, I've learned that I may be scared of things and I may be upset that things didn't work out the way that I wanted them to, but they worked out for a reason, and I am the person that I am because of it. Yeah.
I like that.
Yes, that's good. There was a guy today that I was talking to, and he was, I can't remember exactly what the predicament was, something to the effect that his roommate had kicked him out, and he wasn't there to talk to his roommate, and all of his stuff was still in the apartment and blah, blah, blah. He didn't have the money to pay the next month's rent and he was going to be gone for a couple of months before he could go back and get it. Anyway, he was just really upset about the whole situation. And he was talking about, well, I think I'm just going to have someone go and get my stuff, and that'll make it so I don't have to give the 30 days notice, and he can just like screw off and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, in that way I can have the last word. And I said, you're just setting yourself up so that in the future you're going to have to like deal with this. Like, what if you bump into this guy? This is like a friend of yours you've been a really good friend with him for like 6-7 years. You say, I told him, I call that poking holes into my sobriety. It's going to catch up with me, So if I can deal with things that are going to cause me fear in the future or some kind of a problem, I just try to correct them now, and then I don't have to deal with those fears, at least as much as possible. I know that can't be possible for everything. It's not as possible as, when you're trying to figure out what other people are thinking. I set myself up for that all the time. But yeah, I used to think, it's funny because for all the years that I was drunk and high, I thought I was like psychic as hell. Like, I always knew the future. I always knew what someone else was thinking. And now I sobered up and I'm about as psychic as a piece of sheetrock. Like, I just, at least, I could make believe that I was a psychic, But
I could see you being like a tarot reader.
a tarot card
Yeah,
reader?
yeah.
That's
There
funny.
you go.
I just tried to read my tarot cards myself the other day and I had no idea what any of them meant.
You could open up a place called Sheetrock Readings.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's good.
People punch holes through it, and grab their card out of the wall.
That's good. Read the chunk of sheetrock that
man.
comes off. See this jagged edge right here?
So, one thing I was thinking about when Kevin was talking. So, back in the day when I was like aggressively training, pretty hardcore with mountain bike racing, I would take advice from people of how to do something better or do this, and it created a lot of fear and anxiety of they know all, so take their advice and apply it to me and it will work, guaranteed. And I struggled with that, just thinking like I would waste so much time. I would try different, like, not drug substances, but substances to like fuel my body the right way and recover 30 minutes after doing something and kind of following these ridiculous things. And the biggest thing that I learned, one, that everything that comes out of someone's mouth doesn't ever work for everybody. It's not a remedy to what works for you doesn't work for me. And I took this advice from this professional mountain biker, and he said, Mike, you got to eat this, and this in the morning time, and you're going to be rolling real good. And I tried it, and within like 5 minutes of on my bike, I felt like shit. I felt like this is not me. My body is not used to this. And 10 minutes later, I was stopped, and I was throwing up in the bushes. And in a race where I was like fit and ready to like, win the thing.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. And it really did. But I was really frustrated with myself thinking I had all this build up and whatever, and I am taking this advice from him and it's going to work. And sadly, I wasn't listening to the most important person. It was myself. And I feel like that's a huge, ticket in what I've learned in the, taking that from biking and adapting that same principle to me of being in recovery. And I hear a lot of things from people and advice about this or help me here in ideas. And I really think it's such a hard thing to listen to yourself and slow yourself down and process what's happening and being able to be okay with whatever happens. And that's really hard because I think people take comfort when they actually hear something from somebody thinking, oh, okay, and I feel a little bit better now. I can move forward. And then again, you're not listening to yourself, but I don't know.
Here's the thing. I always talk. I mean, just throughout this podcast, I've talked about fear being like this debilitating, crippling curse, right? But there's a lot of times where it's a good thing to have. I have this really solid fear of not becoming the person that I was before I got into recovery. That's a pretty solid fear. Like, I do not want to go back to that person.
Can you clarify that? What did you say?
I don't want to be the low-life piece of shit, drug addict, thieving, manipulating monster of a person that I was. And I have a very healthy fear of that because I don't want to be that person again. I don't want to do the shit that I did. I don't want to end up, in the closet with a gun to my head. I don't want to end up, with a DUI, another DUI. I've already had one of those. I don't want to end up being miserable and angry, and I don't want to be that person. And so one of the reasons that I attribute doing as well as I have in my recovery and working as hard as I have is for that fear. I don't want to go back, man. I don't want to do it. And so even though we talk about fear being this debilitating thing, it's also a good thing as well to have this fear of my old using buddies. I have a solid fear of them, not necessarily them as people, but their habits and getting back into what I was doing. So I went to my buddy's house. This is a really good story, actually. I went to my buddy's house the other day to kind of say goodbye to him, and because I'm moving soon, and he invites me over, and I walk in, and this house is exactly like a house that we used to party in when we were 16, 10 years ago, 11 years ago. And he's doing the same thing, okay? 11 years later, he's doing the exact same thing. Jobless, because, the world's picked him out to shit on. I think his girlfriend's actually supporting him right now. 2 kids, day drinker, and all he does is play video games. The nicest thing in his house is his PS4 and his TV. The rest of it, there's garbage everywhere, and it's it's a dump, right? And I walk in that room, and immediately this fear sank in of, oh my God, this could be me. I could be stuck in this rut for 10 years. 10 years. And as I'm talking to him, I'm talking to this 16-year-old. I was talking to the same guy that I was talking to 10 years ago about the same shit. Same people, same gossip, same excuses on why you haven't done anything with their lives. The same dreams of, I'm going to move here. And
It's because you guys have nothing relevant with each other anymore.
Well, it's not even that. It's just that they're stuck. He's stuck. He is literally stuck. And I saw that. And this is just like 2 days ago. I saw that, and I walked out of there going, oh my God. Like, I may be a fearful person, but at the same time, that fear that I have has driven me to a lot of successful places. And that's what you've got to, that's one of the things that I have to remember, is that my fear has driven me to a lot of successful places. And it's the same as what you were saying. You're right on asking people for advice and stuff like that. And every once in a while, that's a good thing. It's a good thing to ask for advice. It's a good thing to be scared that you're not going to make it, or you're not going to be quick enough or fast enough or whatever. It's a good thing because that helps breed growth. But like you said, it can also be debilitating too. And you have to. And that was the thing that I had to learn, is I had to trust myself. I really had to trust myself. That early on, I didn't trust myself worth a shit. And I don't actually tell anybody in early recovery to trust themselves. Don't trust your gut. Your gut will get you high. This is the way that it is. It's just the way that it is.
It's too fresh.
Yeah, but later on, when you get clean time under your belt and you have some type of experience living a sober life, then you can start trusting yourself. And you can start trusting the process. You can start trusting the decisions that you make. And man, that fear just dissipates like crazy.
It does.
Did you know I have social anxiety?
Do you?
Yeah, I have solid social anxiety. And I can go up in front of 50 people and I can share my story in the most theatrical motherfucking way. But I have social anxiety, yeah.
I'm glad that you brought it up, that as you get some clean time, eventually you'll be able to start trusting yourself. You'll be able to start trusting your decisions. You'll be able to start, feeling more confident. You can start trusting yourself being alone with yourself. I don't know about you guys, but I would rarely get into trouble, especially, when my using got really bad. When I was with a group of people that were using, it was when I was by myself. And I was I became afraid of myself. I couldn't trust myself, especially when I first started to sober up. I didn't really want to go home because I knew I would drink by myself, But I'm glad you brought it up, because a lot of people, including myself, kind of got this, maybe the wrong message when I was, first in recovery, is I had a fear that I was going to always be sick. And there's a difference between, I now know that I have this, quote unquote, allergic reaction to alcohol, and I'm an addict to all kinds of things other than alcohol. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to be sick for the rest of my life. I hear people say things like, "Oh yeah, I know I'm going to be sick forever, and I'm not going to be well and whatever for the rest of my life." And I'm like, who told you that? Because that's not the message that, like the AA Big Book tells you anyway. That it does tell you we're going to be able to trust ourselves. We're going to be able to hold our heads up high, just like anybody else. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's, the fear of ourselves does go away.
Yeah. Well, naturally, my fear was fear of dying.
Yeah.
Like it was death, and now I really don't even think about that. It's like
Right.
I'm healthy, feel good, and I'm more likely to probably die in a car accident now, just
Right.
driving to work than I am, and that's just a normal feeling, you know.
And fear, of course, you don't want to ever get rid of all of your fear. Fear is an instinct. And we're also told that by our using chemicals to such a degree that our base instincts get distorted. Our drive for sex, our drive for love, fear, things like that, they all get distorted. As a matter of fact, I used to think this was kind of like cool words put together in a sentence for a recovery book, but it's called instincts in collision. They seriously go off course, start bumping into each other, and that's what gets us into our trouble. You mix things like fear and love together, and it's going to come out badly, or, just, those basic instincts that don't make any sense when they intertwine. So you don't ever want to get rid of your fear of, like, being too close to the edge of something. You want to, be able to take a step back, because that's dangerous,
Well, it's a fine line, because then you go to the opposite and you have someone who's fearless. And, me growing up, I was a pretty fearless person. I was the type of person that a friend would say, jump off that cliff, and I would typically be the one who would jump off the cliff.
Right.
And, I mean, I'm 30.
But something I know about you is you probably had it, like, well planned out.
Well, maybe.
Like,
for a while.
You had, like, the rope planned out. There was probably a parachute on your back.
I mean, I'm 33 and I've broken 22 plus bones.
Oh, wow, that's terrible.
Most of it was from racing, skiing, and cliffs, and most of it was kind of
Cliffs. I love how you just threw that in there.
cliffs.
Racing and skiing and cliffs.
It's true though.
Right.
I loved it. It was like I loved that adrenaline, and probably my most favorite sport that had so much fear driven, that would bring so much, like, I don't know, so much fear inside me, was whitewater kayaking. And it is one of those sports that, like most sports, you kind of lose some of that edge. Not kayaking. You have it every single time you jump on the river, and if you don't have the respect of the river, that's usually when a problem would occur. I've almost lost 2 close friends kayaking. One I had to rescue that was stuck underneath the tree, and it shook them. It scared the living hell out of them, and they gave up and quit kayaking. But it was one of those.
Fear. Healthy fear.
You're right. They're like, I almost died. I'm out. Yeah. And yeah, it was pretty wild sport though. So like I loved it though, because like you had to really go down the whole river and thinking where you're going, and high rivers and waterfalls and all of that. I loved it. I love that thrive. Scary shit. It just fuels me. But once I've gotten a little older and having more kids, it's kind of winding down a little bit. But
It's funny that you can go through an experience like that on a kayak, and you would be like, "Hey, let's do that again."
Right.
Like tomorrow.
Right.
Or this afternoon, maybe.
my
Maybe
buddy's
just breathe
legs
for
are
a
like,
second, and I want to do it again. Yeah. It's funny how we're like that, because we can, like, do all the drugs and alcohol in the world to the point of death.
right.
I think Jerry Seinfeld said it to Beth in a comedy routine I seen, and he was like, I think he was talking about, actually he was just talking about like headache medicine or something, and he's like, give me the dose that will kill me, and then just back it off just a notch.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we were like. That's what I was like.
That's true though.
Right.
You do the same thing when you're drinking, you're throwing up all night, and you're like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that again. Mm-hmm. Sun comes up, you're like, Okay,
So
where's the
we start
vodka?
feeling
Yep.
better again.
Exactly. All right. Well, we're running
Terrible.
out of time, guys. So let's. What do you guys got to wrap this up?
I wanted to ask Mike if he would read that quote.
Oh yeah, I got a good quote. We were talking about the Will Smith movie, and it has a really good quote on fear.
What was it again? Gemini.
Gemini. It's not the best Will Smith movie, but if you're into the message of it, when I was new to sobriety, I actually watched the show and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like such an eye opener about fear. It was kind of a lame movie, but the message across the board was really deep and really good.
All right. What you got, Mike?
I'll end it on this. It says, "Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is nearly insanity." Yeah, I do like that.
I do like it too.
That's a really good quote. I'd have to end it with fear, especially if you're a fearful person, it can let up and it can be better. I used to be afraid to get up like in the morning, especially in early recovery, just because I didn't know when I was going to relapse, if I was going to relapse, whatever. And now I am literally moving to a foreign country by myself to study a subject that I don't even know if I'm going to enjoy or not. Leaving all my friends, all my foundation, everything to go build something new. And I couldn't even attribute this level of fear to the severity of me waking up those mornings. Just because of the work that I put in to help to process it. And so I think the message that I have is it gets better. It gets better. Go
And
for
I
it,
would
Kevin.
say, fear is not your friend. I used to be comfortable thinking that I knew what everybody else thought. I used to feel comfortable with not being able to say my name in a meeting, let alone like in a school hallway even, But, I found if I work my way through that fear, okay, even if I don't work my way through that fear, if I just stick my hand anyway and say, hi, my name's Kevin, I usually make another friend, and whatever, I thought was going to like chew off my hand, like it wasn't there,
People aren't actually piranhas.
Right.
Right.
They do have teeth.
That's a good point. They do. Some people have really jaggedy teeth too.
Yeah.
So-
Anyway, so brave it out. Be curious to see what's behind fear.
Good shit, guys. All right. Well, that basically wraps us up for this week, guys. So before we go, once again, Mike got 1 year today.
Happy
Boom,
birthday,
boom.
Mike.
Dun, dun.
That just happened.
It felt
Totally just
it
happened.
felt really good, and it still feels really good. So thank you for all the support. Love it.
Hell yeah.
Yep.
All right. We're out of here.